Hey, welcome to Alaska Lifestyle. Today we're in Wrangell-St. Elias National Park and Preserve, and we're heading towards McCarthy.
This is an area with absolutely amazing Alaska beauty and a lot of history. After watching today's adventure, this is a place you're going to want to visit.
Welcome to our journey through history at the Kennecott mine in Alaska, one of the most intriguing stories of copper mining. Today, we're teaming up with St. Elias Alpine Guides to take you on an exclusive tour of the old mill building, a magnificent structure that stands as a testament to the mining legacy of this region. As we wander through the remnants of this once thriving mining town, we'll explore buildings that are over 100 years old, each with its own unique story to tell. Join us as we uncover the rich history, the breathtaking scenery, and the impressive ingenuity that define the Kennecott mine. Get ready for an adventure that brings the past to life. Let's dive in.
Awesome. So all this rocky terrain out here, anybody have an idea of what that is before we get started? Any guesses? Glacier. It's actually part of the glacier. A lot of people guess that's actually tailings from the mine. Tailings is just what they got rid of in the mill building, but it is actually glacial moraine. So what happens is as the glacier comes down off the stairway icefall, it's pushing all this rock in front of it and it's picking it up as well. And as that glacier melts, all that rock is going to end up right on top. The teachers that worked here didn't stay for very long. To be a teacher back then, you had to be single. And so if you were a single woman coming to a mill town back then, full of men and miners, you probably wouldn't stay single for very long. So they were often rotating teachers in and out of Kennecott. This building over here was one of two bunkhouses in Kennecott. The top two floors is where they slept, and then the middle floor was the mess hall. The bottom floor was the washroom. This housed around 50 to 80 people at a time. In the bunkhouse, they did what's called hotbedding, I believe it's called. So basically, all the workers worked in 8-hour shifts in different cycles. So as soon as you got up to work your 8-hour shift, someone would be coming off of their 8-hour shift and they would just jump right into the bed that you were just in and it would stay warm all the time. So super funny. Cool. All right. This building on my left was where they kept all of their cold storage. So all their cold storage food and all of their meat. Anybody want to guess how they kept that room cold inside? Ice. Ice is a good guess, but ice would it was the type of refrigerator, so that ice would melt and kind of rot the meat faster. So they didn't use glacial ice, they actually used ammonia. So have you guys ever used hand sanitizer and let it evaporate and your hands would kind of cool? Same kind of thing would happen in there. They would coat the walls in ammonia and as it evaporated, it would cool the room. This one is open to the public. You can actually still see where they hung the meat inside, super cool. But yeah, the train would oftentimes pull through there. And then you see this track right here going right inside. They would load the meat right onto that track and then just wheel it right inside. All right, so the railroad that ran through here would have run right through here. It actually followed what is now McCarthy Road today. It ran from Cordova all the way up through the Chugach Mountains, right through the middle of Kennecott. It was about 196 3/4 miles long. So crazy railway. It was called the Copper River Northwestern Railroad, nicknamed the Can't Run, Never Will. Obviously it did run, but it ran into lots and lots of issues. I'll show you guys some pictures here. So here's one. The Chugach Mountain Range gets around 500 to 800 inches of snow a year. So that's the top of the train right there. And you can just see the one guy out there shoveling. This is probably the new guy. You know, they just let him out here all by himself. Yeah. What a bad day to work the railway. Yeah. They would actually build the tracks from the train leading back to the main track instead of hauling it back over. So it was just easier to do it that way. But yeah, super crazy. With nothing to your name, you could pop in there and kind of buy anything you needed. Any sort of supplies, any sort of food, and any kind of tools as well. But they're trying to catch the shuttle. That dam actually wasn't for water, it was actually for tailings. So back then when they started pumping ore out of the mines and getting those tailings, they knew there was still copper in them, they just knew they weren't smart enough to know how to extract them. So they kept them all consolidated right here. And then National Creek, right behind me, actually ran through a pipe and shot over the dam. You guys get to see a picture of what that looks like back then. But again, they kept all those tailings here, and it wasn't until 1917 where they developed that ammonia leaching process to extract the copper from the tailings. And you'll guys see a little bit of that at the very end of the tour. Across the way right here, we have what was the railway depot. And there's where you get your train ticket out of here. Super funny. All the workers here signed a 6-month contract, and they would get paid at the end of that contract. And so what would happen was you'd come up here, work your 6 months, get paid, and then the train wouldn't be coming in for a few more days. So you'd go down to McCarthy and have a good time with your buddies. Come back up here and you would have no money because you spent it all in McCarthy. So you wouldn't be able to buy a train ticket. Just one of the ways all the workers were kept here. So a couple buildings off to my left. This one kind of on the left side of the creek. It was the only building painted white in Kennecott. Anybody want to guess as to what building that was? It was the hospital, that's correct. This was the most advanced hospital during the time. It was the first hospital in Alaska to have an x-ray machine, as well as doctors and nurses on staff 24/7. So Stephen Birch really dedicated a lot of his investments into the hospital. Again, he wanted to keep his workers here. You can imagine how often there were injuries in the mill building and the mines as well. So behind me is the general manager's office. It was the first building built in Kennecott. There is something that's a little different about this building. That's different just with the other buildings in Kennecott. Any guesses as to what that is? It was a log cabin, that's correct. So again, first building built in Kennecott. Back then, when you laid a claim on a piece of land, you had to improve the land somehow. This was how they did that. Over time, it's obviously evolved. They have some east and west wings poking out. But yeah, way back when Stephen Birch was setting up office, he immediately came in here and kind of claimed the building because obviously, if you're the manager of the town, you're going to set up in the only building that's there so far. So this flag right here, super cool detail. Only has 48 stars. Any guesses as to why?
It was a state territory.
Yep, Alaska was still a territory and Hawaii wasn't a state yet either. So awesome. Definitely my favorite part of the tour because I don't have to talk as loud. It's a little easier on my voice. But we have a couple pictures behind me. This first one up here was taken in 1911. I just want you guys to notice that it was taken from above. So this picture was taken from on top of the glacier. Just goes to show how much taller the glacier used to be. Super cool. Down here, 1917, we can see what that tailings dam used to look like, and the National Creek coming down through that pipe and shooting right over the dam. Super cool. We can see a row of houses kind of up on the hill here. This was called Silk Stocking Row. Everyone who lived there could afford to wear and buy silk stockings. So that's your upper management, your more skilled laborers. That's just what they nicknamed that street up there. And then do we have anybody staying in Kennecott Glacier Lodge? You guys? Awesome. So that was this building right here. Kennecott Glacier Lodge actually used to be an apartment building for those skilled laborers. So super unique, super cool. This building right here, that's where we're at. Right next to it, that big white building, was Stephen Birch's mansion. Sort of sat right up on the hill right there. If you ask me, he was doing pretty good for himself compared to all the buildings here. But I'll point that out to you guys where that would have been once we hike up the hill. Cool. Any questions?
We're looking for small, really green rocks, which is going to be copper.
Those are pretty good. Yeah. Nice. Nice. This is what we call leverite. You can just leave it right there. Awesome. That's pretty good right there. Some green in that one. Awesome. Those are cool. Awesome.
That wasn't a good one? The big one wasn't.
The big one wasn't. I found a really super blue one. You guys want to check that out? Here. Any of that one? Yep.
Oh, wow, that was really little.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good.
That one's probably the best one.
That's
Here.
good.
Yep. Awesome.
Even better than that. He's got some too.
That green that you guys are seeing in those rocks, that's what's called malachite. Malachite is a type of copper ore. If you guys see any blue in your rocks as well, it's called azurite, another type of copper ore. I have a pretty good example of both of those right here. If you want to go ahead and pass that around. Oh, wow. Yep, great. Yep. What they were really looking for was this right here. This is called chalcocite. They were just pumping tons and tons of chalcocite out of these mines. One of the reasons why Kennecott was so profitable. Again, they were just finding columns and columns of chalcocite. And as they were coming down the tramway, they would actually get redirected to go into a high-grade ore chute that we kind of saw earlier coming out of the side of the building. The chalcocite just needed to get crushed up. It did not need to get processed any more than that. That's how pure it was. So this right here, it's probably about 90% copper. As I pass it around, definitely try and feel the density and the weight of it. Grab that, yep. Cool. Yeah, I know, crazy. And then this right here, more of that leverite. It's called limestone. This is the host rock that all that copper was latching onto, and it's what they had to separate the copper from inside the mill building. So go ahead, feel how light that is compared to that chalcocite. Yeah, super awesome.
I know, right?
So welcome to the mill building. We can see these cables right overhead. These would have gone to Jumbo Mine. The workers actually rode these cables up and down from the mine whenever they needed to get into town. Again, they had their own bunkhouses up at the mine, but if they ever had some time off, they would ride those down on top of the ore. So super cool. If you guys kind of take a step this way, you can see Donahoe. You can see that contact zone I was talking about a little bit earlier, that darker rock on the bottom, that lighter rock on top. We'll definitely get a better viewpoint out on the deck inside the mill building. On my left and right, we have two machines called Buchanan jaw crushers. So these two chutes went down to a mechanism that would just pulverize the ore kind of like that. And then they would go down more chutes. The one on my right would have gone up through the middle and then down to the left side of the mill building. This was that high-grade ore chute. So any of that chalcocite would have come right through here. And then everything else would have mainly gone on my left through here. We'll kind of follow that process down this way, if you guys want to follow me. Down on my left, down there, you can see what used to be the powerhouse building, those smokestacks. That's where they would heat up all the water and create that steam. Cool. But I want to talk about what's kind of back here, right here, this grate. It's what we call the grizzly grate. So back then, there was probably a very strong and very large, very grizzly bear shaped man standing over that grate with a sledgehammer. And his job was to make sure everything was small enough to get further processed. So everything that couldn't fit through that gate, he would just take a sledgehammer and just pound at it for about 8 hours a day. Super tough job, I'm sure you can imagine. These chutes that you guys looked into behind you over there, those were back storage chutes. So if the mines ever shut down for any kind of reason, they would have a whole back storage full of that copper ore that they could just keep processing into this building, so they wouldn't have to shut down this building as well. That chute probably goes down a little over 100 feet, and it is supported by a wall of concrete. This building is actually one of the biggest freestanding buildings in America, in North America. And so all the concrete that you're seeing down there isn't going to be for any kind of structural integrity. All the structural integrity is coming from those big wooden beams. So super fascinating. And then you're going to notice there is a lot of electrical wiring going through the building as well. They did have electricity in this building. It was powered by that steam we talked about earlier.
Sometimes words elude us.
That's right. Vibrating screens basically made sure the material was small enough to get further processed. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them on the floor below us because there's one that's still mostly intact. But as we're looking around the room, do you guys notice anything that's a little different, that's a little kind of weird? It's actually the windows. So if you look at all the windows, they're going to be at your feet, kind of below your waist.
Yeah.
So it's very likely that this floor wasn't here before. What probably happened was they needed 2 more vibrating screens, so they built in this floor and then added 2 more vibrating screens. You're gonna see a lot of weird renovations and stuff like that throughout the building. This building was always evolving. There were no actual blueprints or schematics of this building because of that reason. So they did get paid very well. Working conditions were harsh, but they got paid about $4.25 a day, which in today's standards is about $20 an hour. They did have to go through a couple of deductions for room and board, and anything they bought in the store, I believe, went on credit towards their paycheck. So it came out around $250 to $225 a day is when it ended up coming out. So that would work was there would be some copper ore coming out of the chute down here and falling onto this metal mesh right here. And then as the machine was going, it would be vibrating about 2 times a second, kind of like that. Anything that was small enough to go through that metal mesh would. Anything that was too big would fall down the chute at the very bottom and then get further crushed later in the process. There will also be water coming out of this pipe right on top to help lubricate the screen and to help the copper flow down as well.
Yes, I'm in the truck.
So on my left and right are a couple more crusher machines. On my left is what's called a trailer roller mill. So inside this capsule right here, there'd be 2 drums rolling towards each other, kind of like that. And then you'd be able to change the distance between them with that giant gear poking out over there. And again, anything that was inside there would just get absolutely pulverized. This machine weighed around 29 tons. The machine on my right is called a Simmons disc crusher. Inside this drum here, there'd be 2 discs rotating at the same time. One would be a little ovulated, again, just pulverizing anything inside. This one weighed about 30 tons. So can you imagine the effort needed to take to haul these machines up the hill? They actually needed to wheel them in on train tracks over to my right. You can see those in that room over there. Yeah, absolutely insane.
That is sunny.
Oh yeah. So what I'm standing on right now is what's called a Hancock jig. It is a sorter machine. So do you guys remember how dense that calcite was and how light that limestone was that I handed around? So they actually use the density and those weights to their advantage in the sorting process. So this box that I'm standing on right now would move up, forward, down, and back about 3 times a second, and it'd be flooded with water. And as the ore was coming through the chute down here, it would get separated based on its density. So because that calcite was so heavy and dense, it would just be sitting right in the front right there. It wouldn't be able to make it all the way down this box here. But in the middle right here, we'd find those middlings, that azurite and that malachite, not as heavy, but it's still that copper that they wanted. They still wanted to use that copper. And then at the end over here, we'd find that limestone, that lighter stuff that they don't really want, those tailings. So all of that material would go down these chutes and then get further sorted. The machine I'm standing on right now is actually what's called a roller trailer mill. We saw one of these a little earlier, but it's another crusher machine. You guys might be wondering why there's a crusher machine right where all the sorting is happening. So it was very likely that they did do crushing on this floor before, but they wanted to put more shaker tables in, and so they boarded the machine up and built around it and put more shaker tables in. That's those tables that you guys see right behind you. Those are shaker tables. But again, just a little easier, a little more cheaper than hauling this giant machinery out for sure. The room back there, that was the old machinist shop. So anything that could be carried by hand and worked on was worked on back there. That room is kept a little warmer in the winter, probably around 45 degrees, just so the workers could still use their hands. Yeah, super funny. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then as we're going through the building, you guys might notice that there's not a lot of windows. So as the land around here was getting auctioned off, people were coming up here and homesteading and building cabins. The windows were definitely not the first thing that they had on their minds. So what they did was they would come up to the old mill building and steal those windows and window frames and put them in their own cabins and buildings. So there's definitely a couple of buildings and cabins around here that have those mill building windows still, for sure.
He's like, this is the last time of the day.
Seeing now more shaker tables. These ones do look a little different. The ruffles are a little bit bigger. These ones are actually run off of electricity. You can tell by all these outlets coming down. But something super cool they did, they never really wanted to turn these machines off. So when they had to put more oil in, what they would do is they would take off the top right there and they would let all the oil kind of spill out and it'd end up splashing up against the wall. You can see the stain right there. So they let all the oil drain out and then they would put the top back on and put new oil in. So they were all about efficiency and production in here. They never wanted to turn off the machines if they didn't have a good reason to. Your tables, these ones look a little different. Again, they're just used for sorting different size material. Back behind you guys over there, we have another crusher machine. So again, there probably was a lot of crushing done on this level back when production first started, but they didn't need to anymore. They just used this floor for more shaker tables. So they boarded it up and built around it, a lot cheaper than hauling it down the hill. But this crusher was called a ball bearing crusher. Inside that drum, there'd be ball bearings, and that thing would rotate like a washing machine. And so anything inside, again, would just get absolutely pulverized. Back behind me, on this floor down here, that's where all the sacking would happen. Have you guys ever been to a grocery store and gotten coffee beans? You take the little sack up there, the little plastic sack, and then you pull the lever down. Same kind of thing down there. So there'd be a big wooden chute, and then if you pull a lever, a bunch of ore would come down, and they would sack all of that ore in a burlap sack and tie it off and just throw it on the train. They sacked all the ore instead of just putting it in a big crate because it would freeze over the Chugach mountain range as it went over. So it would actually sack all of that copper and then layer it with salt as well in between all the bags just to keep it from melting. So that's the answer to your question that you had earlier. Yeah.
Wow, this is really wide.
Oh yeah. You guys want to head downstairs and just hang out in this front area right here? Yeah. Yeah, welcome to the Kennecott Brewery. Yeah. Ammonia leaching facility. This is where they leach all of that copper from those tailings. So if you had to have a solution of sand, water, and salt, and you had to separate the three, what you would probably do if you were smart enough would be scoop all that sand out and then boil the water until it evaporates, and then you'd be left with the salt. They do the same kind of thing here. So they would boil a bunch of ammonia down the stairs right over there in those tanks down there. And then in these tanks right up here, they would pump in a bunch of tailings and water. And so as the ammonia was getting pumped into these tanks, it would be dissolving all of that limestone, and then they'd be left with just those copper flakes on the inside of the sides of the tanks. And so as that ammonia was evaporating, there would be someone crawling inside of these tanks and scraping all of those copper flakes and sacking them. So you can imagine the conditions of that job, absolutely horrid, yeah, absolutely awful. If you look up into the beams up there, you can still see what's left of that ammonia staining, that ammonia copper mixture up there in those beams. Super cool. And then next door, there was another process, it was called flotation. So they would have a solution of just that water and those tailings as well, and they would pump in eucalyptus oil up from the bottom, and as it bubbled to the top, it would collect all those copper flakes. And at the top, there'd be a froth, kind of a mixture of that eucalyptus oil and water and that copper. They would scrape it off and let it dry, and then they would have copper flakes in there, and they would sack those and put those on the train as well. So in the mechanical and physical processes next door in the mill building, they're probably extracting around 90% copper. In this building, they're probably getting around 3 to 5 more percent, so around 95%. And then next door, we're probably getting around 3 more percent. So 98% extraction of what everything they were pulling out. Absolutely impressive. I mean, 80% in today's standards is considered to be pretty good in terms of mining. So that was over 100 years ago as well. Near the end of production in 1938, they ended up pulling around 600,000 tons of copper out of the mines. And in the flotation and in the chemical processes, they actually started to find silver as well. Near the end, they found around 9 million ounces of silver. Just the silver alone was enough to pay for the mill building and all the construction around here, as well as the railroad. So everything that they found in copper was basically profit. Absolutely crazy. Yep. Very, very cool. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me on the tour. If you guys want to wash your hands, if you touch anything while I wasn't looking, go ahead and wash your hands at this hand washing station right here. I also have some hand sanitizer as well. And then if you guys want to fill out a comment card, it basically lets our company know how I'm doing and how our office is doing as well. Feel free to fill those out. You'll get a free pencil if you do. So, yeah.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? We had an amazing tour over here at St. Elias Alpine Guides. Mike's here. He did such an awesome job showing us Kennecott mine and going through the whole mill area here. It's been super cool. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you up here.
For sure, cool. So again, my name is Mike. This is my first year with St. Elias Alpine Guides. I'm just an intern right now, but we just did a mill tour. So we just walked through the old town of Kennecott. It's an old ghost town where they mined and milled copper. And we went up to this mill building right over here, and we talked about the machinery a little bit and talked about all the processes that were involved with that as well. So super interesting stuff for sure. Yeah.
Awesome experience. We definitely suggest to go to St. Elias Alpine Guides, get yourself a tour to the Kennecott mine, come check out McCarthy and Kennecott area. Super fun. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, this was an absolutely incredible experience. Like, Mike, the guy, did phenomenal. And just the history here and the national park and what they've done to restore and keep this and have it available for us to come look at is just,
To be able
it's
to
amazing.
tell the story of just to be able to tell a story of that many years ago, what was going on here, to be able to show it and still have stuff laying around. Like, there's tools and parts and pieces. There's still copper on the shaker table that I found. Like, super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible experience. We can't recommend it enough. If you make it out to McCarthy, go up to Kennecott and at least get a walk around the place, if not a tour, so you can really get the history and idea of what happened here.
If you like anything that has to do with history, old things, old buildings, old processes and history, this is one of the places that you need to go if you visit Alaska. It is an awesome place to come visit. The Alpine tour guides, check them out, get a tour, because they can get you into the buildings and tell you about all the processes and what happened, and you can ask them questions. Super awesome experience.
Yeah, that is one of the perks of doing the guide service, is that, for example, the mill building, along with some others, you actually don't have access to should you come walk this yourself, which you can do, but you will not be able to see the inside of those buildings. You'll actually have to arrange a tour, which the main one out of here is going to be St. Elias Alpine Guides. So that alone is worth it, just to be able to see inside of these buildings.
We do have a ride provided for you down to McCarthy, and it is right at the end right there.
All right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Check them out.
Sweet, thank you.
Check his YouTube channel out, McCarthy.com.
It's actually Alaska Lifestyle.
It's actually Alaska Lifestyle.
There you go. Do you really? Do you really? Do you want a sticker?
Yeah, we need some stickers
Dude, that's
for
awesome.
that.
Thank you.
Car cases.